Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Can you hear me, Radu, Agota? I'm gonna connect my camera.
Hello.
All
Hi,
right.
hello.
All right, we made it. There was some mistake with the link from another session. I made it. All right. So we're
Do we know
gonna.
how many participants we have?
I think 24 now, and it will probably keep increasing when the official starts in a couple of minutes. In the welcome session, we had hello Agata. In the welcome session, we had about 40 or so. So we'll see. Hello, Lucas.
Hi, you can hear me, no?
Yeah, everything all right. All right, great.
Manu, I think we are ready to start if I'm not wrong, the transmission is on.
All right, very good. So I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes to get started, but just want to say hi to the people that are connected.
Okay.
I'm gonna share my screen. Eva, do you know how can I do this?
Give me a sec.
Maybe I need to be made a presenter.
You should be. No, you are. You just have to click the button share to share your screen. You have several buttons. The first one is to mute and unmute, and then the next one is for your webcam, and the next one is for sharing your screen.
No, I actually don't have a share your screen.
Play, because mine is different. I have a play button in the upper part, and I think that I can share the screen. Because
yeah, I think I'm gonna make me a presenter. I think now we'll be able to see my screen. All right, good. Let's wait 1 more minute or so to get the rest of the people to join, and then we can get started. Very good. All right, so I guess we can get started now. First of all, welcome to everyone participating in this session. We want to make it as interactive as possible, and for that we have 3 top-level experts, each one coming from a different background, and we will try to cover 3 hot topics with you today. One belonging more to the broad area of ICT and interconnected society, one more in the bio and health sciences, and one in the area of environment, energy, and climate change. This session belongs to the final event from PREFET project. It's a European Commission funded project from the FET program. And you can see, if you are seeing my screen, you can see that you can check the agenda. You can check in our website very easily the agenda for the event. You can access this PDF in our website and check all the training sessions and all the interviews that are going to happen over the next 3 days from starting today, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I really encourage you to take part in the training sessions in IPR, in early stage R&D, exploitation of results, all are gonna take senior experts at your disposal to give a very practical, short training sessions. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the rest of the experts in this session. I'm gonna go back to the camera now. So I have here with me Eva, the coordinator of the project, and Agatha from Trilateral Consulting to assist me in the session today. And here with me, I have our three experts for today. First of all, I want to introduce Dr. Lucas Lamata. If you could introduce yourself in a couple of minutes. What is your area of expertise? What is your role, your professional role? That would be great. So welcome, Lucas.
Thanks. I work at the University of Sevilla. I'm an associate professor here, and my expertise is quantum computing, quantum technologies, quantum simulations, and also the relation of quantum technologies to machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. That is a field that is emerging in recent years, the connection between these two areas.
All right, very good. And I have also with me Dr. Agata Apati from Hungary, the founder of the first human stem cell laboratory in Hungary. If you could please introduce yourself, Agata, welcome.
Welcome, everyone. So I'm Agatha, and my field of interest is human pluripotent stem cells, which can be differentiated into every cell of our body, so they can use for therapies and for basic researches as well. And we are differentiate them mainly into cardiomyocyte, neural cells, and mesenchymal cells. And we are also making disease models from the patient samples.
Very good. And finally, with us, Dr. Radu Georgiou. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. If you could introduce yourself, welcome, Radu.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. I am co-founder and the president of Prospectiva, which is a foresight organization. What we do mostly, and I do and every day, is scanning for emerging technologies that promise to change, hopefully into better world, our Earth. Here I will speculate a little bit about prospects in relation to energy and more specific to technologies that support zero energy on a shorter or longer time prospect.
All right, very good. Now I'm gonna briefly introduce the main topics of discussion for the session. We want to make it as lively as possible, so feel free to ask any questions. Agatha and Eva are gonna take care of the questions you keep asking, and we will try to address it during the debate and also at the end of the discussion. The three hot topics that we have today, and they link quite well with our work during the project in the identification of emerging trends, is for ICT is Evo AI. In the bio space is going to be life after life, so enhance humans and cognitive augmentation. And finally, for environment and climate change, we have a near zero energy civilization. So that is going to be our three hot topics for today. And I want to briefly introduce part of our preliminary work that in the end make sense of these three hot topics discussion. which is our emerging trends work. You can access, I'm sharing our website, so this is public. You can access it on our website. So if you click on our periodic table, you will be able to access these one-pagers for each one of these 45 emerging technologies. And then you will also be able to access our 20 finalist trends. So you can see this is a kind of a qualitative graph where we map these 20 finalist technologies. You can see here that we included at some of the 20 trends the limits of quantum computing, decoherence as a challenge, and the use of machine learning and AI. So this is something that we are going to be talking about today. And you can actually play with the visualization and check some of the other trends that are relevant to what we are discussing here today. So you can see cellular senescence and life extension. You can see cognitive augmentation and intelligence amplification. And you can see many others like regenerative medicine, energy efficiency, energy efficient water treatments, and 20 other trends. You have algae against climate change, and you have zero power sensors and ocean wiring. This is just to mention a few of them. If we just to show you very briefly before we step into the debate, you can access any of these trends here, like for example cognitive augmentation. I'm just going to open this one up. And you will be able to access this kind of executive summary. It's like a very concise overview of this topic. So this is the one for cognitive augmentation and intelligence amplification, and you can see some of the highlights we have, some of the previous work done towards this area. So all of these are kind of like mid to long terms emerging technologies. So some of the work done here is not necessarily specific in the niche area, but it's a precursor of this niche topic. So you can see there has been some projects funded by DARPA. I think this one belongs the next generation non-surgical neurotechnology N3 program. It's from late 2019. There's also a project funded by the European Commission in the self-repair of dysfunctional brain circuits, and also a grant of 1 million by the NSF in the US. So this is some of the early work. We typically highlight some promising phases of research. So here we highlighted a professor from Harvard University and a professor of applied ethics in this particular field of cognitive augmentation in Aachen University. And we kind of suggest or come up with some futuristic scenarios. So all, of course, taken from, they are all evidence-based. So they are all taken from some signals in the literature, whether it is a scientific publication or some news outlet looking at the future. So you will be able to find this kind of insights in every single trend that I showed you before from the periodic table. We also do some analysis regarding the most active key players, and also an analysis on how the references evolve over time. So it seems that 2019, so this work is important for me to note that this work has been done last year. So this is why these references take up to 2019. And also an analysis of the public funding. So here you see some of the grants that funded this in the US and also in Europe. So you can access this type of information for every trend. I'm just going to open Another one to show you, also relevant to the topic that we are going to be discussing with Agata. This is cellular senescence and life extension. So this is pioneering work from researchers identifying and designing senolytic compounds that can curb aging by regulating the senescence of cells. So this is also an interesting approach in cancer therapy, and there's some pioneering work being funded by the European Commission, almost 3 million allocated to develop a senescence therapy for cancer. Of course, many other lines of research just focus on this futuristic scenario, which is senolytics. You can think about it as a pill that we would be able to take to kind of end aging, so or at least delay it as much as possible. So it's life extension. Some of the phases of research that we highlighted. Researchers from Max Planck Institute, the University of Helsinki, University of Montreal, Cambridge, and many others. So it doesn't mean they are the rock stars of the field. It just means that we highlighted some of these promising researchers in this particular emerging topic. The same as before, you can have some evidence-based signals. This was done thanks to the consortium work and the use of linknovate.com as software. So this was reviewing many different data sources from academic to industrial. Of course, usually in these super emerging niche topics, the review and the mining of academic sources is critical. And you can see here that the exponential growth in this area of research over the last 2 years, from 2018 to 2019, in this very specific niche topic, so senolytics and cellular senescence. I think this is okay just to show you as a couple of examples. It works the very same for ICT and interconnected society. Here I'm showing you a topic that is relevant for what we're going to be discussing with Dr. Lucas Lamata. So this is quantum internet and quantum communications. And as before, you can see some of the very early pioneering work in this area. We highlighted the Danish Center of Excellence, which is a similar program in a way to the PREFET program at European level, but at Danish national level. Some UK work as well, NSF. So here you have some important projects that have been paving the way. And here we highlighted some futuristic scenarios as well, and the phases of promising research, 2 European researchers, one in the industry and one in a Spanish university. We also highlighted a couple US national labs for their work, although Dr. Lucas Lamata will share some more names in the European scene, which I'm sure there are plenty. I'll look at the data mining for very active organizations in quantum communications. This one is interesting because, as opposed to many of the emerging technology trends that we identified, we see many corporations, many industry players doing long-term research and very pioneering work, and also a little bit the growth in references. So this is year to date, so, because this was presented kind of at the end of 2019, but the year was not ended when we created these executive summaries, so that you can see there's a growth there, but a linear growth. So there was already interest in this topic 4 or 5 years ago. So I think this works as an introduction. Just wanted to briefly remind you that we just presented this in our previous session. Before I give the room to the panelists, we have a game jam on our last day on Friday. So feel free to tell friends and to tell coders. We are going to be giving prizes to the hackers and engineers that come up with inspiring games around these future and emerging technologies. So any of these trends really gives a lot of room for thinking about the future and thinking about futuristic scenarios. So I think it could be inspiring for game developers, and also the other way around. So we want to also learn from game developers. So I think we can go to the most fun part of the session, which is the debate with our panelists. So I'm gonna give the room to you. I would like to start with a bold statement from each one of them. So I'm gonna ask you, Lucas, Agata, and Radu, to kind of give a 1 minute or 2 minute statement on your point of view, and then we can build on that. So we will touch just 1-2 minutes in each topic, in each hot topic, which is our dream or our nightmare for Europe. Evil AI, life after life, and near zero energy civilization. And then we can step into each one of them and start the debate. So we're going to start with Lucas, evil AI and quantum computing. What would be your bold statement, Lucas?
Okay, thanks, Manuel. So first of all, I would like to say that evil AI is, in the next few decades, is nothing like in science fiction movies like Terminator or so, of a conscious, malicious, intelligent AI that ends up destroying humans. So this is not happening anytime soon, but there's a problem with AI nowadays that is bias, because it's trained with biased data, and that can produce failures in their performance. And the relation to quantum technologies is that quantum technologies can accelerate the use of machine learning. It has not been fully proven yet, but many people think that this could be the case, and this will produce an enhancement of machine learning and AI for good and for bad, for good things and for bad things. But I'm optimistic about the future. I don't think an evil AI will destroy humans or something like that. I think.
All right. That opens the debate and gives a nice takeaway from you, Lucas, which is you are optimistic about this future, and that quantum computing can act as a catalyzer or as an accelerator of what AI can do. So what we think is decades away can be only years away thanks to quantum computing. So now I'm going to give the room to Agata. If you can share with us a 1-2 minute bold statement in your point of view about human life enhancement, enhance humans, and life extension, that would be great.
Okay, so my bold statement is cell therapy is a brand new Swiss Army knife of the humankind, and we can use for all seasons. And this is for next 5 years, I think, because with the gene editing technique, we got the tool not just for making designer babies, which is now recently is the evil side of the cell therapy, but we got a possibility to make designer cells. And with designer cells, we can reach almost everything. We can replace our cells, we can regenerate our cells, or we can fight against cancer or infections. So
right.
I think in 5 years we can use these cells for therapeutic purposes. But in 10 years, maybe we can make organs from stem cells, and even further, we can make designer humans, which has extended lifetime and extended possibilities physically and psychologically as well.
All right. Also, to sum up, you would assign a 10-year timeline to be able to design organs and even to design certain desired aspects of new humans, to put it in a way.
Yeah, this is a
Okay.
bold statement, but yes, we can start with debate with this.
All right, very good. Eva, Agatha, if you can, we are now sharing the mirror, which is kind of like this post-it notes to share with the audience, so you can check it in the screen in the screen. So we will try to condensate there some of your statements and takeaways. So finally, the third bold statement on the third hot topic of the day is the near zero energy civilization. So the floor is yours, Radu.
Thank you. My bold statement is that in terms of near zero energy, we have islands and we are starting to build archipelagos. We know how to develop near zero energy houses, for instance. The technologies are improving, the costs are reducing, but we still have a problem of scalability. Not only to all the houses, but to larger systems like cities or countries, or why not the civilization. First of all, I'm very optimistic in the long term in terms of energy availability. Only when considering the solar potential in the world and the wind potential, they are basically dwarfing the current energy demands. So I see a future not very nearby, but a future where energy is very abundant, cheap, and maybe we'll see even dangerous patterns of consumption in energy, like cities starting to create microclimate for them. But on the short run, we have not so much time. We started the transition very late, and we need to invest. The problem is that the driver of change is not, unfortunately, the market, because the market failed in this. We are late, and now it is the governments and the increasing regulation that supports green energy in global scale. What is the result of that is that it is a huge pressure on innovation, on research and innovation, to undergo the full process from concept to large-scale application. What we are facing right now is a kind of huge living lab with some costs. We see progress, especially, for instance, in solar, which in less than 3 years doubled its efficiency. But this also means that the initial investments are now obsolete, and we have toxic waste in the process. So we are going into rapid prototyping, a large scale. You know, in Romania we had Ceausescu, which was the communist leader that built they changed the buildings just looking at them. Said, I want one more floor or something like that. So we are in a kind of similar situation. We need to adapt not only the ideas, but at large scale. And there is a lot of experimentation. Not all of these technologies will, in the end, be part of what I would call a dominant design for the energy mix. When we have a kind of stabilization of, as we had previously with fossil fuels, probably will face a stabilization of this energy production. So for the next years, I can
Ronnie,
see.
let me
Please.
stop you there, and then we will go back, because I want to use those comments to kickstart the debate on your hot topic. So if I had to summarize your bold statement, I would say you see problems with scalability. You see we reached the island, but now the question is, can we reach archipelago? So we have achieved in a way near zero energy in buildings and abundant energy at building level, but now can we make it to cities, and then can we make it to regions? And you also see a future with abundant energy, also with the problems of scalability and some of these energy sources dominating over others. Any other highlight before we move on?
The stress on materials. This transition to green energy puts a huge stress on materials. It is the case, for instance, in materials for batteries, which is now creating new international even conflicts or fights for these resources.
That's a very good point. I think Agatha is taking notes of that. So the stress in the development of new material science, which for myself as a materials engineer, in my background, I can really tell this is a problem in the energy space, because the development in material science happens very slowly compared to other areas like bio or like ICT. So now I want to go back after these bold statements in all the three topics. I want to go back to Lucas, and I want to kickstart the debate on evil AI. So Lucas, feel free to share some of your comments. Then I'm gonna also ask a couple of questions that I have here. I have some quotes also from Elon Musk, of course. So that will be fun to hear your opinion on that. Go for it, Lucas.
Yeah, I know these comments from Elon Musk and also Stephen Hawking years ago. They claimed that AI was the main threat to humankind in the next few years or decades. And I think, well, Elon Musk is the owner of Tesla, and he created Tesla. And Tesla is an auto company that has at least partial self-driving cars, and it has a lot of machine learning. So he knows about machine learning. But I think we are very far away from the point in which robots will take over, or artificial intelligence becomes conscious and wants to subjugate humans. I think we are very far away from there. I think the main point nowadays is bias in machine learning algorithms, no? Because machine learning algorithms are being trained. Excuse me, someone is calling.
Yeah, I think this kind of like emerging topic inside this emerging evil AI and quantum computing is what you just said about the bias of algorithms. And there's a big hot topic inside Europe, which is explainable AI, right?
Sorry, could you repeat? Explainable AI?
So it's in a way what you just mentioned, this problem in the bias of algorithms in machine learning and artificial intelligence is condensated in this concern or in this emerging topic in Europe, which is explainable AI. So you cannot have AI to be a black box and just provide outcomes or provide recommendations without knowing exactly where they come from.
That's true. That's a main problem that appeared in the past few years. That of course you have a neural network, you want to train it with deep learning, with several layers and thousands of connections, synapses, and so on. And then once you train it, you don't know what it's inside. It's like a black box, and then you don't see why it behaves as it does. No? And sometimes if it's trained in a biased way, you cannot see it easily. explainable AI, as you mentioned, so that there are people that are concerned with this, are trying to really benchmark machine learning algorithms in such a way that you can really see what it's inside, in some sense.
What examples of benchmarking could you provide? Do you have any example of that? To me, it's a very interesting topic as a founder of a startup in the field of data mining and machine learning. What can we, let's say, what can we implement to help the user understand where our recommendations and where our results come from? Is there any examples that you know of? Any techniques that we can think about implementing?
To be honest, I have not thought much about that, so I don't know any specific example. I know that's a problem, the fact that machine learning algorithms are somehow, in some sense, black boxes, and there are people trying to solve that. Yeah. But I don't know the specific of those approaches. I don't know, because in quantum computing we follow a different strategy that is mainly use quantum devices to accelerate machine learning, but we don't focus in these specific tasks of machine learning. For example, there are other kinds of algorithms that rely on doing computations that are secure and that cannot be hacked, no? And that can be done, for example, in the cloud in such a way that you need not download the data. You don't need to give your personal data to the device. That's like an area of quantum computing that is blind quantum computing, that relies on doing computations without having all the data at your disposal. That way it can be safe from hackers and so on. This is another area that is important in quantum computing, because
it's called blind quantum computing.
Yeah, this is a kind of quantum computing that relies on that, on computing without having all the data available to all the parties in some sense.
So this is also important to highlight. People are usually surprised that for a topic such as technical as artificial intelligence and even more quantum computing, you need to involve multidisciplinary researchers on it. But we can clearly see that, for example, explainable AI, it's a big concern inside AI and inside quantum computing. So the importance of involving, for example, ethics experts in such projects, because with from what I'm hearing from you, Lucas, with quantum computing you can accelerate what you can do with machine learning, but then it still raises the question of, okay, but this is still a black box, so the algorithms can still be biased. So and now I want to use Elon Musk quote here to challenge you and to kickstart to keep the debate, which is in the end, AI doesn't have to be evil to destroy humanity. If AI has a goal and humanity just happens to come in the way, it will destroy humanity as a matter of course, without even thinking about it. No hard feelings. So
there's a typical example that is given in machine learning courses or machine learning textbooks, as the Stuart Russell book, that is the paperclip building. No? So if you give an artificial intelligence the goal of building paper clips, and it should use all its means to achieve that goal, if it's super intelligent, it could just steal all the energy and all the resources of humankind in order to build paper clips, because that's the goal it has been given.
Right.
I will annihilate all humankind just for building paper clips. But of course that's very unrealistic, because what AI experts think is that as these devices become more general, because they are better than humans for specific goals. The problem with AI is not general. An AI will become super intelligent when it's an artificial general intelligence, that it can solve many different problems with the same device in some sense. But nowadays they can solve problems better than humans, but very specific. So and as far as these devices become more general and have more capability and so on, the natural thing is that they will be also protected against this kind of risks, because humans will also design them in the proper way. So it's very unrealistic to think that we will build a super intelligent device and we will, in the way, will have not taken all the care measures to avoid that happening. As Stuart Russell is one of the leaders in artificial intelligence, a professor in Berkeley, and he wrote one of the main textbooks in artificial intelligence. It's a very large textbook that is well known. And he claims that when calling AI evil is not appropriate, because AI is by definition good. It's like an engineer that claims that one makes bridges that don't fall. You don't say bridges that don't fall, you say building bridges, because it's implicit that they don't fall. Otherwise, it wouldn't be building bridges. Also, having an AI typically by the artificial intelligence community is meant to be a good AI that is beneficial for humankind, because that's what it's built for. Of course, malicious people, organizations, or governments could employ this tool that is a very powerful tool for doing evil things. That's a fact. I think nowadays and in the next few decades, the main threat is other humans using AI more than a conscious or evil AI itself. It's the main threat. And as I point out, nowadays the problem is the bias. Training the machine learning algorithms with biased data, and for example, police are using it for judging, assessing the risk of certain quarters in cities, or judges are using it for trials and so on. And this is a problem because it can discriminate against minorities and so on. So banks are using it for mortgages, for giving mortgages to people, to assessing risk.
Right. We did an analysis on together with an expert in public procurement, how AI is starting to be used for public procurement. For example, mortgages, public competitions, public procurement for innovation, for example. So these are definitely areas where AI bias plays a role. I want to share with you another quote to get your feedback on it. This is Andrew Ng, the founder of Coursera. So you know the massive online courses and ex-lead of Google Brain. He said, we have seen AI providing conversation and comfort to the lonely. We have also seen AI engaging in racial discrimination. Yet the biggest harm that AI is likely to do to individuals in the short term is job displacement, as the amount of work we can automate with AI is vastly larger than before. As leaders, it is incumbent on all of us to make sure we are building a world in which every individual has an opportunity to thrive. Do you see this job displacement? I mean, in the end, what I'm taking away from your conversation is AI will take some years to fully develop its capabilities. It's decades away to really have a global evil or good potential, but quantum computing can accelerate these cycles. So do you think this job displacement is an issue, and that this accelerator that can be quantum computing can really make this a global issue? What is your take on that?
Quantum computing can be useful for many computing tasks and can accelerate several algorithms, either classical or quantum. It's not fully proven that it can be useful for many machine learning algorithms. It's expected that for some of them at least it will work, but it will probably require a much larger quantum computer than the ones that we have nowadays. So perhaps that's not near term, or perhaps it could be for other kinds of algorithms, because there's HHR algorithm, is a Harrow-Cassidy-Lloyd algorithm. It's an algorithm that has exponential gain with respect to classical computers for machine learning. That's the best example that shows that quantum computer could accelerate this. but this will require 1 million qubits, and we are now in the level of 50 qubits, so it's very far away. But there are people that claim that the 50 qubits that you already outperform the classical supercomputers for, at least for simulating the quantum system. You could have already algorithms that outperform classical machine learning algorithms. It's not fully proven, but some people have hopes that this will be the case. And this could already accelerate, as you say, machine learning algorithms for different kinds of tasks, for optimization and so on. Regarding the loss of jobs, that's a real threat. And I think this has happened also, well, you know, this Ludit issue centuries ago with these looms and so on. When industries have been developing, it always happens that they displace previous workers and that new kinds of jobs appear. So I think the natural thing is that many jobs will be automated in the next few years. This is very likely. Jobs in many sectors, especially the jobs that require less creativity and less imagination, less artistic traits or things like that, I think will be faster automated, ones that are more mechanical, more iterative. But new jobs will emerge. That's the natural thing. Some people claim that this time is different because AI is so powerful that the rate at which new jobs emerge will be slower than the rate at which jobs are automated. This could happen, but I'm optimistic in general. If you see, I read Steven Pinker's books. He's optimistic about humankind. We know in the last few decades, middle class in many countries has somehow worsened their life quality. But if you see the global trend in the past century or even earlier, humankind has significantly improved, significantly, well, to a great extent. It's impressive, the life expectation, life healthcare quality, the leisure that we can enjoy nowadays. I think we have reasons to be optimistic because the technology, I think, has mainly improved life quality. And AI could somehow eliminate.
That's a good point, and it ties also with PREFET RRI aspects and also the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is part of our work done in PREFET. Is okay. How do we link this? How do we link this to the Sustainable Development Goals proposed by UNESCO? So as you said, it's also good to keep in mind that, for example, in terms of poverty, we are clearly better than 20 or 30 years ago. So that's also good to keep in mind. Just wanted to ask you a couple of final questions, Lucas. To me, this is a very interesting topic. I could be speaking about this all day. Do you think that quantum computing can allow artificial intelligence to make hyper-realistic simulations of the world? What is your take on that?
But I don't know what you mean by hyper-realistic simulations of the world, because a hyper-realistic simulation to me will be to simulate the quantum state of every particle in the world. That's very, you need a, I mean, even to simulate a 50 qubit system, you need a quantum computer with 50 qubits also. So you will need a quantum computer of the size of the universe to simulate the universe.
Okay.
Full, you wouldn't do that. You typically simulate traits of your devices.
So how about hyper-realistic simulation of specific traits? I didn't want to get
with classical analysis, you simulate like sometimes average values. You simulate low energy states or things like that. So very often you don't go to the full quantum state because that will be very detailed. But with a quantum computer, it's expected that you will simulate another quantum system of similar size. If you want to simulate every property of all the full quantum state of your system. You need a
But how about a hyper-realistic simulation of, let's say, a simple living animal, like, you know, an amoeba or a protozoo or something like that? A very simple organism.
Very complicated.
Very
That's very
complicated.
complicated because you have the Avogadro number, or even some orders of magnitude larger than the Avogadro number of atoms in some macroscopic system, or at least mesoscopic system. And this means it's very far away in the future. Even a million qubit quantum computer will be very far away from simulating something of the size of the Avogadro number. 10 to the 20 something atoms is very far away. No? But I think to simulate properties of living systems, for example, we have this paper of quantum artificial life in which we simulate traits of biological systems, like cell replication, things like that you could do with quantum systems. And with quantum systems, you can simulate,
I imagine, for example, the simulation of chemical reactions or enzymatic processes.
This is natural. This you could simulate, at least with a small prototypes of quantum computers. They have simulated these kind of things, chemical reactions. Of course, in a chemical reaction, is, as I mentioned, you don't use the full wave function, but you simulate typically partially the quantum systems and partially with classical approximations, like the Born-Oppenheimer approximation, these kind of things. So you typically solve perhaps the electronic system with a quantum state, and then you simulate other parts in a more semi-classical approximation, like the oscillations of the nuclei, things like that. So you can solve the chemical reactions with quantum computers. This is shown to have exponential gain. Of course, simulating a full macroscopic system with all its properties with a quantum system does not make sense. But you're simulating, for example, solids have been modeled even by classical computers for one century already, and it works pretty well for specific properties of the solids, or spin models, things like that. So you can simulate specific properties without introducing the full wave function of the Avogadro number of atoms in their computer, because that cannot be done even with a quantum computer.
Okay, interesting. I didn't hear about that, and that also sets kind of an order of magnitude of what can be done today and what can be done in the short term. So it's very good also for us in terms of road mapping and assigning a timeline to this. So yeah, I wanna end here the debate on this hot topic for now. Then we can go back to Q&A if we have some questions in our chat. I want to encourage again everyone to pose here any questions they want. We were around 40 participants. We're 37 now. And I want to move on to the next hot topic of the day, which is in the biosciences with Dr. Agata Patti. And I want to leave the floor to Agata to build on her bold statement from before. So if you can recapitulate a little bit, Agata, and comment a little bit on your perspective on it, that would be great.
Okay, so in my bold statement, I was asked to be provocative, so I tried it, but okay, this is the best scenario, and there will be lots of legal and ethical work to make it work in the future, because there are lots of questions which we are cannot able to answer in the scientific world. And like the energy sector, it's always a permission from the political side and from the population. What can we do, or which is the most eligible way to do it. And so I don't know. So and there is always three big question which can be solved before we can do effective treatment or effective science.
Okay.
And these are the safety, efficacy, and the cost. And the safety side,
safety, cost, and what will be the third?
Efficacy. So
okay.
if you think of a treatment, first of all, you have to prove that it's safe for the patient. Second,
Yep.
you have to prove that it's efficient for the disease or for the problem. And last but not least, you have to calculate the cost and who will pay it.
Yeah.
So these are the problems we have to solve before my bold statement will occur in our world.
What is the potential from I guess the field that you come from, which is stem cells, and do you know any other approach to life extension and to enhancement of humans from the brain perspective, from the neurological perspective, or from the sensory perspective? You can talk a little bit about stem cells and also if you know any other approaches.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, stem cells or cell therapies are can be used almost everything therapeutically. So we can replace cells in our body, and there is examples for it recently. We can replace retinal cells in the eye. We can replace beta cells, insulin-producing beta cells, and even we can replace motor neurons in human. There are clinical trials for it. We can regenerate our cells. There are clinical trials when stem cells are patched into the heart just to regenerate the stem cells in the heart. So they don't differentiate into cardiomyocytes, they just produce some cytokines which regenerate the heart. So we can use our regenerative system to regenerate our body. And we can do it with stem cells because stem cells produce some cytokines and paracrine hormones which can do it. And and we can fight against diseases like cancer or infections. We have these T cells which can fight against the cancer, ICAT cells, which are producing antibodies against the cancer types. So, so we can imagine almost everything with cells. Okay. And if we can imagine that, we can imagine that we can produce biologics in situ in our body. We can imagine a cell which is produce insulin. We can produce TNF alpha for inflammation, produce GDF11 for fountain of youth. I don't know what. So that's your imagination is the limit. So.
And what would be, in your opinion, and maybe this is out of your field of expertise, but I'm still interested to hear from you as a biologist. And this is actually quite in the news these days. because some of the women founders of the CRISPR gene editing technique just were awarded the Nobel Prize of Chemistry. What would be the role of CRISPR in all this, of genetic editing techniques?
So the genetic editing techniques allow us to produce cells for our desire. We can make these cells differentiate. We can make cells to produce biologics, and we can make cells which can hide in our body, and our immune system cannot see them. We call it cloaked cells, for example. So we can use this CRISPR technology to make the cells which can be unseen in our immune system. So this is good because we can make cells which can be used for every human. So we can make cells which can be used as a drug, because there is no HLA problems. If my immune system cannot see the cell, there is no inflammation, there is no problem. So and this comes with the CRISPR technology, that we can engineer the cells exactly and precisely. So we can take these genes, the so-called safe harbor of the genome, or we can take it into a site when it's when the cells come hepatocytes, then this gene can be activated, or I don't know what. So the CRISPR technology is a very effective tool to generate designer cells. Okay. And with these designer cells, we can get the knowledge how this CRISPR works, how the off-target effects are in the cell culture or in the animals. Before we start to edit human zygotes, we should know how we can work with this CRISPR system.
Okay. All right, interesting. And Agata, just to mix the two trends from before, do you know of any example of growing stem cells into kind of like a biorobotics or bionics type of development, and then into an animal or into a human to fix something that is part of a disease or part of some symptom? Do you know of any example like that, or do you think this is some years ahead of us? What is your take on that? Like, is there some work between stem cells and like enhancing humans combined with biorobotics, as far as you know?
This is not my field of interest, but I saw the video, as so many of us can see, when they use neural cells to move a little robot to draw a line. What? So these were human cells, human neural cells differentiated from stem cells, and they had this optic system to activate the neural cells, which make a a little sign, and this sign moved this little robot to draw a line. So it was amazing. And I saw once a conference, then they differentiate from stem cells a motor neuron, and after that cardiac skeletal muscle cells. And they just activate the neurons, and the muscle cells just moved, and this whole thing moved forward. But we cannot make it more. So we cannot make it work more complicated systems, as I know.
All right. Well,
but
the example.
This is definitely the one of the paths for the future.
The example you put before, it's pretty amazing. I didn't see that video. Maybe you can share it with us in the chat. And which university work was that, or was it
because it's not my field of interest, I couldn't recall, but I will check it.
All right. Interesting. Okay, let's. Before we move with Radu, just want to give you, Agata, the chance also to suggest some other phases of research. So, according to your collaborators or to your knowledge, which other researchers' work would you highlight? Just a couple of names would be okay.
So in Europe there are a very good group of Christine Mamery works with cardiac cells, for example, or Peter Andrews work for life extension and the senescence of stem cells and so on. And in the UK also Ausis made work with stemness and this induced pluripotency, which I didn't mention before, but I can tell you that amongst the stem cells there are pluripotent stem cells which can make all cell types of our body, and the induced pluripotency means that the adult matured cells can be dedifferentiated or reprogrammed into the embryonic state. Shinya Yamanaka, the Japan researcher, got a Nobel Prize in 2012 for this research, and this allows us to make pluripotent stem cells from our body. So you can make pluripotent stem cells for therapy. So just imagine you had a heart attack, you got some skin or blood sample to the doctor. The researchers make it, induce pluripotent stem cells, make cardiac cells for you, and take it back into your attacked heart. So this is the induced pluripotency, and Yamanaka and his group is working on this, and you can use it for model disease modeling, which means that if you are a patient with some disease, for example, schizophrenia, autism, or something like which tissue is not available for research, you can take blood or skin from the patient. You can reprogram them into the embryonic state and make neurons or cardiac cells and so on. And you can see how the disease develop, and which drug can be used for curing this disease.
Very good, very good. Let me stop you there because I want to end this with a
just one. I have to mention just one name because he is Hungarian originally, András Nagy from Toronto, and his group works with these clogged and safe cells which can be used for therapeutics. Okay.
Very good, Agata. Thank you. I want to end this part of the discussion. Then we will come back to the Q&A with one thing that is clear from the conversation with Agata, and which usually policymakers have some trouble with it, which is usually emerging technologies feed from very early stage research that happened years, if not decades ago. So artificial intelligence is not new in the sense that early work was done in the 80s or even before that, if I'm correct, Lucas. And the same way we are seeing these super emerging topics like enhanced humans and life extension that in the end feeds from research that was awarded a Nobel Prize in 2012, which means that research must have taken place years, if not decades before. And they are still hot emerging technologies. So now I want to move to our final hot topic, which is kind of the more interdisciplinary of all of them, which is the one we count Radu on it. Is near zero energy civilization, and I'll leave the floor to Radu. Radu, I think you are muted. Give it a try. Yeah, now perfect.
Okay. So it was from the system. I would add some issues to my initial statement about near zero energy. First of all is that we will probably become more of prosumers of energy in the future. Now we are seeing ourselves as consumers, but in the future our house, the office, the different systems we are in are also introducing energy into the system. Of course, we don't know we don't really know the future, but we expect that some dominant form of energy production will be in the future. We see solar, we see that hydrogen is coming strong as for stocking energy, but most experts agree that we'll see also a diversification of and smaller scale energy production or simply conservation or efficiency solutions. So we don't know yet the balance of this big, the mainstream energy input and this smaller solution. Right now we see a lot of small solutions which are, as I mentioned, not really scalable. And what is unfortunate is that many of these solutions do not really consider the entire life cycle of this technology. For instance, you have a house and you say, okay, this is zero energy. Yes, the house working is zero energy, but not the house construction and the technology used for the solar panels into the house. So we need really to endogenize more than our sphere of action. So in terms of prosumers, we also need to have a new kind of consciousness. Some of people already started to see more about energy consumption also, and for contributing to the green energy with their resources. Trying to dare a little bit, I would say that in 10-20 years, because still we won't have the main energy the big player, the game changer, like would be, for instance, nuclear fusion, which would be a game changer and maybe get us off the problem somehow. We won't have it in the next 20 years, most likely, but we'll see what I would call energy cultures, cities, communities that basically build a mix, their mix of energy production systems, of energy harvesting from different resources, or simply energy efficiency. I would stop here.
All right. Interesting concept. I'm taking notes of this concept from islands to archipelagos because it's an interesting way to look at it. And I actually did some quick searches on our search engine, linknovate.com, and found some funded work around neighborhoods. So instead of near zero energy buildings, which has been a topic over the last 5, 7, 8 years, now they are starting to appear in instead of individual buildings, neighborhoods. And then I guess the next challenge would be to incorporate this into smart cities. So I actually found a couple of projects, one in a Greek city and a couple more. So that's interesting. Also the concept of instead of being consumers, being prosumers of energy. And finally, you mentioned, well, you are optimistic about the future, about having abundant sources of energy in our timeline in the next 5 to 20 years. You mentioned nuclear energy, in particular fusion power, fusion energy. Was part of our 45 periodic table. It didn't make it to the final 20 trends because of the online voting and all the process that went into this road mapping. But it was certainly identified as an emerging technology, even though it has been work for years, if not decades. And it's one important thing before we close this topic is to remember that this near zero energy civilization is not only about achieving abundant energy, it's also about needing less. So why is this important? Because renewable energy sources that today are contemplated as low carbon, sustainable, and friendly with the environment, in reality have a dark face, which I have the feeling, talking also to other experts, that we will be more demanding on what we expect from renewable energies. So what is now contemplated as almost kind of sources of never-ending energy, like a breakthrough in nuclear fusion energy, can be contemplated as not so friendly in the future because of the waste that goes into building, for example, the equipment to generate this energy, or if you contemplate a whole life cycle analysis. So, of course, solar energy is a clear example of this, but many other sources of energy. So, contemplating near zero energy civilization is also about needing less. So, needing extremely less, I would say, and being much more efficient on our management of cities and our management of the sensors we need to live in an interconnected society. Radu, if you want to comment on anything else, we are about to close.
Maybe a quick reaction of this issue of consumption.
Of course.
Indeed, we need to consume less. We have very inefficient systems. We look at the transport, for instance. The weight of the cars didn't change very much in the last half century.
That's a good point.
So do we really need to transport all this quantity all the time? This is kind of ridiculous, and it is difficult to change it because you have the dominant design of the roads, and the streets are like that. So we need some radical changes in the design, and probably we'll see, for instance, transport systems at level of the cities that have new configurations that maybe break these patterns. On the other hand, we need to think globally. We need to think that there are countries which are poor and which are in the development process, and it is hard to say to them, okay, you don't consume so much because we consumed a lot in the past. So we need to, looking at the global scale, that the challenge is quite different. Like thinking of India and energy consumption, when, for instance, a middle class appears. So it will be probably a negotiation. And I come back to the idea of energy culture. A lot of personalized solutions for different areas. And in the near future, we should not expect that near zero is possible for all. It is important that we create proof of concepts. We have a dissemination or a large adoption of these technologies, but we need to think that the world is diverse, and probably will not this adoption will not be equal in all parts of the world.
Right, of course. Thank you, Radu. This allows me to open the Q&A section of our panel, of our session. The last 10 minutes to read some of the questions we got from the audience. And I just want to start with you, Radu. One of the questions we got is, I'm gonna read it literally. I think we spoke a little bit about this, but we can come back. What kind of innovative solutions in alternative energy can kill the ordinary energy market? I think you mentioned particularly nuclear energy, but if you want to build on that, what would be your?
I think for the first time in the last years, we see that solar and wind are beating fossil fuels, which is very good news. And probably hydrogen will enter the same path. It is probably a technology that needs also economies of scale to be market viable. But we also will see smaller solutions, like just cooling of the buildings, or so smaller impact, but solutions that can be largely adopted in the near future. Again, in terms of game changer, I see only nuclear fusion high on the map. Of course, not considering the new generation of classic nuclear energy, but which less dangerous as estimated, which in some countries are accepted and in others don't.
Yeah, good point.
Sorry, but there are good scenarios, promising scenarios, like for instance, solar everywhere, meaning that you have the paint on the walls, and the window is solar, everything is solar. So we have such scenarios, but yet the technology is unfortunately not yet at the level of the market.
Got it. Very good. Now let's go to the second question we have here, and this allows me to talk on a point we were planning to touch anyway, but somebody in the audience raised it, so that's great. I want to pose this question both to Agota and to Lucas. is about legislation. So in the case of genetic changes, it's clear, it's important. Who do you think should be involved in legislation and regulation in your emerging technologies? Either one of you.
Well, if you wanna, may I start or?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure.
I think legislation is important, and policymakers should be actively involved in science, because there's an ethical component of all this. But of course, on the other hand, you have to give freedom to scientists to develop their projects and not put too many regulations. I think it's a trade-off. No? You need some regulations.
Do you know of any commission that is regulating on quantum computing, Lucas?
I think not for the moment, but I think it's not such an important threat as of today. I know, for example, in the nuclear realm, as you mentioned, nuclear energy, nuclear realm, there's all these treaties of control of nuclear weapons. In the sense of chemical weapons, there was also a huge involvement of political organizations that somehow banned all these chemical and biological weapons, and this has been very successful, because I think the amount of weapons that exist in this area of chemical and biological is very much lower. But in quantum computing, I think we are still at an early stage. I think artificial intelligence is more developed and will impact society faster. For example, some people claim about banning artificial intelligence weapons, and this is something that is important, I think, because of course you can program a drone to, put an artificial intelligence in a drone and it can pilot automatically and go to, it can be a threat in many places, as happens, for example, in Afghanistan and so on. So as of today, they are mainly controlled by humans, but they can be very easily put in automatic way with an artificial intelligence, and this can be a threat. So this must be regulated. Artificial intelligence control weapons and these kind of things.
To me, it makes sense to have transplanetary, like global regulation on these emerging technologies. But of course, I don't know if that's possible. Do you think this should happen at national level? This should happen at European level? What's your take? Agata, if you want to respond to this part.
This stem cell research is a bit difficult here than the others, because it beat our ethical feelings, you know. So making humans, cloning humans, or just change the genetic program of humans, it more than legal. It's an ethical problem, and it should be solved by including the churches, politics makers, and the whole population, because we have to see the future and have to decide what to want from the future. And I think just don't close out the researchers, because it happens every day that they just don't ask us what can be done, and how do we see these things.
All right. I'll leave you with that statement, which I think is pretty clear. And also your point about involving citizens in these decisions, and in this, because of how they view the future with it, because it's is also part of the communication, right? If people start viewing artificial intelligence more as a weapon and as a danger, then there needs to be an effort in communicating. The same way that Lucas mentioned that engineers build bridges and no one is asking about building bridges that don't fall.
If you don't understand how to make bridges, it doesn't mean that we don't need bridges.
Right. Right. The last two questions are for Lucas. You can answer them briefly, because I think I know what you're gonna answer. But one is, what would be, according to your opinion, your point of view, is what is the new and greatest threat from QC fuel AI? So quantum computing fueled AI. What would be the greatest threat from your point of view?
I pointed out, I think the greatest threat nowadays in AI is bias AI, and quantum computing speed up AI in the near term will be just similar AI, not a conscious, malicious AI, but AI that is used to give mortgages, to judge people, to cure diseases, like cancer. And if it's biased, it could have wrong consequences for minorities, typically. And quantum technologies will accelerate this.
Yeah, very good. And finally, would it be possible, this is kind of a science fiction question, would it be possible to predict the future with the use of quantum computing, like in Asimov's foundation? I mean, this is a very futuristic question, but do you think it's theoretically possible?
Well, we are doing it all the time, but we predict the future of small systems. We do a quantum simulation of a quantum system, and we guess what will be the evolution of that system in some future. No,
we spoke about that kind of.
But you cannot simulate the whole universe.
No, or not even small biological systems, as I asked before. You can simulate.
Yeah, you can simulate small biological systems if you model some other properties. For example, you can model a human that moves from here to here, because you model it as a particle that moves at constant velocity. As I teach to my undergraduate students Newtonian mechanics, you can model a human being as a particle that just moves at constant velocity if it's moving at that velocity. So you don't need all the biological information for doing that. All this is related to the amount of detail you need in your simulation, for which you want the simulation, for which thing.
Very good, very good. If my colleagues in the project, Eva and Agatha, are okay, I think we are about to close the session. I just want to say a huge thanks to you, the three panelists. We are gonna send you a small gift. I don't know if Eva, if you can show it in the screen. I'll leave the floor to you. So can you unmute?
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. We can see you.
Okay. Thank you very much to the three of you. It has been great, and we will send you this small souvenir. It is a 3D printed wave of the sound PREFET, the future of technology. Thank you very much. And just to have some small publicity, we will also send this to the participants in the project contest starting Friday. So if you are interested, just write us. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.